So good morning again, and welcome to our first session, Connecting the World, Digital Transformation, Robotics, and AI, a very thought-provoking topic that we're sure you'll find very interesting. Once again, I'm Doug Allen, a professor at the University of Denver Daniels College of Business. Before we get started, I'd like to just introduce this hour's giveaway, which is a free trade education class from our Certificate in International Trade program at the World Trade Center. This robust training program offers insight into market entry strategy, as well as courses on process development and compliance for international business. The lucky winner will be able to take one class free from any of these classes in the format of their choosing. I can say that such a course is a great opportunity to kind of get a sense of what the World Trade Center has to offer, and I predict that it will whet the appetite of the person that gets this prize to take further courses as well. Information about how to throw your hat into the virtual ring for this prize will be in the chat area, so keep an eye on that as we move forward. And good luck on that. And now on to our session. The process of globalization has been described as oftentimes driven substantially by technological advancement. While technology has played a role in connecting the world for centuries, the world has taken a great jump in recent decades as digital revolution has changed the way we communicate with each other from afar. Travel to almost anywhere in the world can take place within 24 hours, and communication from any 2 points in the world can take place in real time, oftentimes virtually free of charge. AI and other advanced technologies is literally changing the nature of international business and the mode of operation of global companies, and the experience of employees as well. The pace of change continues to accelerate, and luckily, we have two individuals, Professor Charles Dhanaraj and Professor Wan-Er Ren, who can help us keep up with this absolutely amazing rate of change that we're experiencing. Both bring remarkable perspective and experience to this currently very hot topic. First of all, I'd like to introduce Wan-Er Ren, who serves as Senior Manager for Strategy and Education at Shiseido. Wan-Er has more than 10 years of experience with global startup businesses and industries, including cybersecurity and AI technology. Wan-Er found her passion in helping global businesses find partners during her internship at the Chamber of Commerce in Qingdao, China. Since then, she's worked at a series of startups from Japan and the United States, helping foster communication and collaborations globally. She currently works for the Digital Transformation Office of Shiseido, a Japanese beauty leader for over 150 years, managing education and strategy initiatives. I want to add that Wan-Er is a close friend and an alum of the University of Denver MBA program and now serves as an adjunct professor in the Daniels College of Business. Over to Wan-Er. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Doug. Good morning, everyone. Greetings from Tokyo. I'm Wan-Er Ren. I'm a program manager of the Digital Transformation Office here at the HQ of Shiseido in Tokyo. I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation. And it's really great to be here today. And how I got here is a bit unconventional. So I'm hoping today I'm going to use my own career path as a case study, as one data point for you, and share some lesson learned along the way. And I hope it will be helpful for those who are students or in the early stage of their careers. So for those who are not familiar, Shiseido is the largest skincare company in Japan and the 5th largest in the world. These are some of their brands. You might not recognize all of them because not all of these brands are available in North America. But you probably will see there's Drunken Elephants are doing really well in the US, NARS, and of course the Shiseido brand. And we also own the Tory Burch beauty, especially fragrance business as a whole. Like I said, how I got here is a little bit unconventional. I will go through my life story really quick, under 60 seconds, I promise. So I was born and raised in Qingdao, China, and it's a rather global city. We have a lot of businesses coming from South Korea and Japan, and that inspired me to want to see the world myself. And I did. I went to university in Japan. That's where I learned Japanese, and I majored in education. After that, I did not really speak a conversational English at all. I know I wanted to learn English better, had no idea what I wanted to do. So I went to the US and got my first quote unquote real job in Austin, Texas. And that was a Japanese gaming company. They actually developed one of the Final Fantasy titles. They're still thriving in Japan, and I joined their Austin office as an office manager. Unfortunately, that office closed down. Everyone, including myself, was laid off from the office. But from there, I got another opportunity. I joined the team with the dual security. Many of you from Denver University probably familiar with this application. It's a very successful cybersecurity startup company. It was a unicorn company, and then later on got acquired by Cisco. And for that, I became a Cisco employee. After that, I joined this company called Enthought. It's a digital transformation consulting company. And my fifth actual employer is Shiseido. I just joined recently. So and a few lessons I learned on the way of building a global career. First of all, I want to say is keeping an open mind. If you already have a clear career goal fresh out of university, truly I envy you, because I sure did not. And you don't have to have a clear goal. Keeping an open mind. A gaming industry, sure. Work for a Japanese company or a Chinese company, why not? Learn another language, sure thing. Only good things can come out of it. And by the way, if you are a native English speaker or you speak like a native speaker, congratulations, you've won the lottery in the global business area. Whether I often people ask me whether if it's necessary to learn another language. If you have interest, I would say definitely go for it. Going back to my career map, I would not be able to get several of those jobs if I didn't speak Japanese. But do I use them on a daily basis? Probably only 20%. Of my, even here living in Japan, I want to say 50% probably use Japanese. The other half is just all in English because it's a global company. But I would absolutely not be able to get this job if I didn't speak Japanese. So if you're interested, definitely learn another language. And another thing is find your strength, right? Get your hands on different projects. That's the only way I can think of to actually get your hands on doing different things, talk to different people, and realize where your strengths are at. Another thing is find the gaps, really. Of course, I come from startup world. In startup world, there are so many things can be improved, and it's definitely a high risk, high return area. And I don't recommend it to everybody, only for those who are willing to take up on challenges. And find your gaps. And even sophisticated industry and the companies such as Shiseido being in business for 150 years. However, the digital transformation office is relatively new and doing disruptive work. So there are always gaps to be found. Another thing is ask for help and help others too. many seasoned professionals are very much willing to help people who's just starting with their career. Um, you need to ask, and another thing is you need to follow up. I have mentored a few young professionals, and I will tell you, those who follow up and report back with positive results, those are the people who will go very far in their career, because there will be a lot of people willing to help them. And Doug, how much time do I have? And
You have about 10 minutes or so, and
great.
a little bit flexible, so don't worry, you're doing fine.
All right. And another one, the last one is try and try. Notice I say try and try, I didn't say try and error. Even for because of course we all make mistakes in our career, but in the greater scheme of things, they're not even try and error. Even for the gaming company where they closed down the office, everyone got laid off, I do not regret joining that company, because I've learned so much. I've met people, I've made friends, I've gained more confidence and experiences that led me to other opportunities down the road. So with that mindset, let's take the hottest and the seemingly difficult AI technology as an example. This is, AI is everything that all CEOs talk about nowadays. And there are truly plenty of job opportunities for both technical and non-technical people. If you know how to code, more power to you, and definitely learn to code if you're interested in learning. But even if you're not, that's perfectly fine too. And there are plenty no code or low code, no code solutions out there, and many roles. For example, like AI business strategist, project manager. I'm a program manager myself, similarly, and AI consultant, analyst. There are definitely plenty of things for even non-technical folks can get into. A little bit tied to what I said about keeping an open mind too. One mindset I had when I was in my earlier career stage was, what do I know about this? I kind of often denied myself, what do I know about AI? What do I know about digital transformation? You might not, and that's perfectly fine, because at my previous job at the digital transformation consulting company, I was literally running training programs for scientists who are chemists and discovering drugs to cure cancer. We all have different strengths. We have our different ways to contribute. So just because certain industry you are interested in seem intimidating, there's really no reason to, because for other people who look like they know they're doing, they're not. They're figuring it out, and so can you. All right. I think with that, thank you so much for listening, and back to you, Doug.
Thank you, Juanair, and appreciate these remarks. And I'm sure this will stimulate some good questions out among our participants. I'm looking at the chat over on the side, and it's just fantastic to see the number of locations that we have people tuning in from. And so feel free now, if you're in the audience, to be thinking about questions that you would like to ask Juanair, and now our second presenter, Charles Donnerage. Charles is currently the J. Mac Robinson Professor of International Business and Academic Director of the DBA program at Georgia State University Robinson College of Business in Atlanta, USA. And I've had an opportunity to see Charles's work up front and personal because he joined the University of Denver, my department, the Department of Management, as our chair, right as the pandemic was starting. And so masterfully using a combination of high tech and high touch, he kept our department and university connected through that very difficult time. And so if there's one person I can think of who's qualified to really talk about how digital technologies and human communication mesh together to kind of create the fabric of globalization, it is Charles. He has as an elected fellow of the Academy of International Business and has extensive research activities, having published in a number of academic journals, including the Strategic Management Journal, Journal of International Business Studies, Academy of Management Review, and the Harvard Business Review. He has written several award-winning cases that are used in classrooms around the world. And in his current research, Charles is studying how digital innovation ecosystems evolve in different locations and how multinational companies overcome discrimination in foreign countries, and more importantly, how leaders drive purposeful change in their organizations. He has served as a professor visiting in a number of the world's top business schools, and has also served as a consultant to a variety of global businesses. Just to give you a sense: Eli Lilly, Sanofi, Cummins, Danske Bank, Agricultural Bank of China, Saudi Arabia, British Bank, Unicredit, Pernod Ricard, Maersk Drilling, Arla, Valmet, Deloitte, Sika, Hilti, and several Indian companies, including Tata, Birla, Mahindra, and Morogapa group companies. I think that represents all of the continents, perhaps other than maybe Antarctica. As I say, Charles is a close friend. We've worked together for a number of years, and his perspective on the global scene is as immense as his global experience, and we're lucky to have him here today. Over to you, Charles.
Oh my goodness, you are a kind person. I miss Denver, guys. It's really good to see you all, and I'm so grateful for Karen putting this all together. And I still remember, Karen, our discussion in 2020 when you had all these fantastic ideas, and so glad to have this all come together. This is one broad portfolio I work in. I try to look at the emerging markets as a broad theme of interest for me because I come from India and I've been there. So this is my last slide. So I thought it would be good to see this last slide, and this is where I want the end, right? So let me take you all the way to the beginning and what's my my interest in. And the theme of digital globalization is so appealing to me because right now, like, if you really think about it, sometimes you will hear this. In fact, Time came with the cover page of the end of globalization because she said basically the article's premise was that we are the cross-border trade is missing, dropping, and there is a lot of conflicts, there is polarization happening. So unlikely we are going to have the resurgence of globalization that we saw in the 90s and the early 2000s. But I wanted to think about it, right? This is something that the US students, and you're all in grad school or undergraduate or ready for a career, I want to think about what is happening with this intersection of digital and global, right? On the one end, you open the today's news, Ukraine, Israel, and it's all, the world is full of hotspots, so you just cannot avoid what's going on across the world. Even if you don't want to hear about it, it's right in your face, right? And the other part is what just now Dr. Werner talked about, like the whole digital domain, the artificial intelligence, the AI, the robotics, all this is thrown up in our face. Like, it's very hard for you to hear a business executive speak without mentioning the word AI or digital, right? So given all that, how do we think about it? I mean, this Doug already walked you through my profile. This has been my travel from India to Canada to Singapore to the United States to Switzerland and back here. And this I wanted to just to give a context. Okay, now this is one of the interview that Cisco CEO. It's nice to know that you also work with Cisco. Just in the month of June, he did this interview in India. And he basically mentioned there's going to be, they want to get $1 billion revenue from the Indian market alone. And just to give you a context, it's about $25 billion the Asian market, including India, China, it's roughly about 10 to 12% for them. And $1 billion revenue coming from India in 2023 is a very substantive number, right? I wanted to imagine if you are an executive, just imagine yourself as an executive for Cisco, and you are being called on to discuss, okay, what should we do? The boss has mentioned $1 billion target. How do we go about it, right? And then I can ask you to sit down and go through this assignment. But I just wanted to just do a thought assignment. Okay, what would you do? What type of questions would you ask? Just think about it. It won't be just what switches to use. It won't be just what sort of investment does it take. You're probably going to ask about the politics. You're going to ask about sociology. You're going to ask about the psychology. All these things, right? So this is the type of opportunity that the World Trade Center is putting before you. When you think about international business and the invitation is to come and join an interdisciplinary field. You can be anything that you want to be. You want to be a psychologist and work on a global domain, we got a space for you. You want to be an economist, you want to be a human resource specialist, we got a space for you. And that's the type of opportunity that you are considering, right? And I want to touch on two papers. In fact, this is one of the papers we just published in MIT Sloan Management Review. How do you develop new products? In fact, partly from work with Cisco. Today, Cisco is talking about $1 billion revenue. We are in 2023. In fact, when the interview was made, it was in June of this year. You go fast, go back about 10 years. 2010, Cisco made a big decision to create what they call Chief Globalization Officer and place him in Bangalore. And that's how the whole project started, right? In 2012, Cisco came up with a network switch that was supposed to be used for emerging markets like India, which were using predominantly mobile phones than landlines. Like now, most of you, your generation, don't know about landlines. Like there is something called landline. You are also used to the mobile phone. But just 20 years back, no one thought that mobile will be the type of dominant technology that we see today, right? So Cisco started that project thinking it's going to be purely for Indian market, but eventually when it came out as a successful product, the most markets that it got absorbed was not just India, United States and Europe, right? So it's a big franchise for Cisco, not only for India, but for the global markets, right? And that's what got us to think, okay, how do we think about digital and global? And some of the theoretical work that we have been looking at, and I'm now in Atlanta, and I'm looking at this organization. Every single company is intrinsically global. It's very hard for me to think of a company that's not global. I don't know whether have you been to Chick-fil-A? You probably have been, and it's a company based in Atlanta, headquartered in Atlanta. They just started opening franchise in Canada. Now they are trying to go and build up some franchise in international markets. it's just a new business for them. Or you think about nonprofits. I mean, even nonprofits are thinking about internationalizing their domain. I mean, think about what's going on in hotbeds like a war zone, International Red Cross, or wildlife WWF, wildlife welfare organization. So there is potentially a large group of organizations that are interested in you thinking about it. And I want to just touch on one big area that most of us can think about. Think about financial inclusion. Right? Today, you and I take for granted. You want that. I mean, you go to a restaurant, you pull out your credit card, you pay, and fine. Now, a lot of us are using this cell phone, right? And in the 2010, it was one of the major invention within Africa, thinking about how do they take the unbanked to think about using. Imagine how much of economic activity you will be cut off from if you didn't have a way to pay your money, right? So this is where Vodacom started these experiments in Africa, thinking about using the mobile phone. I mean, this is long before these mobile smartphones, right? You think about flip phones. Some of you may not have seen that, but flip phones are not smartphones, and that's where this mobile money started. Okay, and as we think about financial inclusion now, where does the field go? Like, we are not only thinking about, I mean, how do we bring a large number of people in the underprivileged into the economic zone, right? So it's not just ability to provide them basic connectivity, which is what we did in the 2010s. Now we are talking about digital remote payments, not just what I call bank to the individual. You can also think about peer-to-peer payments. In fact, we are all using Venmo today, which is an outcome of some of these developments, right? And we are still to go in the what I call stage 4 inclusive digital, where you take somebody in the poor category and help them to not only pay their bills, but think about financial planning, think about savings, think about insurance and all this. So you have a phenomenal opportunity still out there just within this small domain of what I call financial inclusion, right? Now, much of this M-Pesa world, which started with this flip phones, it was all about speed, cost, convenience, safety, right? Now, if you think about, as we move into the world of smartphones, we are talking about the very same things. We want efficiency, we want cheaper. In fact, I don't want to end up somebody spending money in the international side, losing like 7% commission or a 4% commission. Now, because of technology and competition, this is coming down a lot, right? And we are still having a large number. In fact, this is from India. And if you think about the number of households, right? We are looking at a population of 1.3 some billions, and you're looking at somewhere about 386, or right now, roughly about 300 million households, right? And even within that 300 million households, you think about the low end of the spectrum, right? That's 127 million. Like right now, we are looking at somewhere between, things are improving dramatically. You are looking at somewhere between about 70 to 80 million still in that bottom pile, right? And typically the number of people per household in the low end tends to be much higher than the number of persons in the higher end. So you're looking at roughly about, you sort of multiply that by 5, close to say 500 million people still in that category that need to come up. So here is an opportunity. I mean, if you want to combine your technology and your purpose and stuff, here is an opportunity that is still unfolding. And I'm living in Atlanta, which is like the crisscrossing of financial payments industry. Like I look around and there is global payments, and there is Wells Fargo. It's full of organizations that are addressing that stuff. Like somebody said when I moved here, 80% of any payment that is made across the globe comes through Atlanta in some way or the other. Okay, so here's an opportunity for someone in the global side. In India, for example, in 2016, pretty much people used cash, and now we are talking about less than 6 years. India has become the world's highest volume of digital payments, and the picture that you are seeing is a guy who who basically steered the whole thing. It started with what they called as identity building. In fact, the word Aadhaar, it's an Indian word that sort of says like identity, and they started with that identity, which is similar to what we are used to social security card, right? And that was the first one. Imagine identifying and giving a unique identity for 1.2 billion people. Think about it. And this is what digital technology has done. So 1.2 billion people, and they all have either they both use the eye as well as the fingerprints, right? So in essence, identifying 1.2 billion people was possible because of digital technology. Because that was possible, now they are introducing a payments layer, right? So in essence, the Aadhaar or the digital identity now is enabling a lot of the payments that is going on, and over that they are creating what's called as a data layer, right? This is what's happening within India, and you are seeing this a lot more replicated in countries like Africa and a lot of Latin American countries, right? Now this is a typical identity card that you can think about, like very similar to your identity card in your in your school. There is a 12-digit number, and that sort of allows you to connect, and there is a fingerprint and there is an eye print, right? And this to give you an idea how people are using. Like this is a vendor who is selling fruits on the street side. No Wi-Fi, no electricity, no pass, right? So he has a QR code, and if you are going to pay, if you have a smartphone, no problem. He can get the pay right same instant that you are paying. It's not a credit card. It's like it's an instantaneous payment that gets to his account, right? And that's where what it is doing to the Indian economy. It's not only making people to get into an entrepreneurial mode more and more, but it's also enabling the more and more of the informal economy becoming formal. Okay. And this is one of the studies, the UPI. In fact, they are thinking that in just about 2 or 3 years, we are going to look at $65 trillion payments. Right? That's the annual payments. That's roughly about. I mean, by that time, if India reaches about 3 trillion, this will be like 20 times of their GDP in terms of the payment business alone. Okay, and that's the power of digitalization. Right? Now you are all a digital native generation, right? For you, digital comes naturally. You think digital first, then think about physical second, right? So you have an inherent advantage to shape the world's how it can become, right? Don't get misled when people are saying, oh, the foreign direct investment is coming down or international exports are coming down. On the contrary, when you look at the data, it's just shooting through the roof, right? Data is like every 2 years, it's almost like doubling of the bandwidth. So we are sort of seeing a phenomenal growth in the way data moves, and you can ascribe economic value to the data. I mean, this is just a paper that was published in 2020. So we are looking at data somewhere of 2018 or something. Imagine just $200 billion of value for the data flow, right? And what that means is there is so much of an opportunity, there's also a challenge, right? So that sort of raises a phenomenal set of opportunities, right? Now I am a researcher and I'm a teacher, and I'm looking at, okay, how do I build the future? And these are some of the areas where we are seeing there is every multinational is asking, how do I deal with this global market, right? And there is, on the one end, the digital is forcing a lot of possibilities, but on the other end, there's socio-political issues that are really constraining. So how are we going to work through it? And this is a challenge. and a lot of you, when you're studying international businesses in the classroom, you're going to deal with that stuff. And the other part is how do institutions evolve? Just recognize most of us are here in the North American setting, privileged economy, privileged society, and the institutions in an advanced stage. There are a lot of countries where institutions are still evolving. And that opens up a new opportunity. For example, thinking about, just now, I don't know, some of you may be monitoring the elections in Argentina. How do you tame the inflation in Argentina? Like there's a whole host of stuff coming in, right? And then you think about the global interface, like how do we connect this global connections or social equity? Like how do we think about healthcare, education? In fact, I just touched on one small arena, friends, financial inclusion. If you take that layer and build on it, like thinking about 500 million population in India or any of the numbers that you can think about in the global side, how do we build some of the support structure, right? And in order to do that well, how do we bring about policy, right? You see this. So the spectrum of opportunities is phenomenal for you, right? What can you do about it? Like, and this is where I want to end. How can I be impactful, right? Number one, start building your global mindset. The fact that you're here, that's a great one. Right? You are giving yourself the advantage of getting to know, right? Read a lot. I don't know what your normal reading is. Don't just limit yourself to what I call the Google stuff, right? Hopefully you are picking up a diverse set of articles, maybe a Wall Street Journal, a Foreign Policy, a few journals, like one of World Trade WTC can give you some suggestions or some of the reading stuff. Travel is the biggest learner. In fact, we have been traveling. I mean, every time I travel, it's a new thing. I mean, how does a stranger feel in a strange place? Like that's the whole idea. Like you go to a new place, it's a new language, it's a new food, new dress, new culture. You learn a lot, and just engage yourself. Right? You don't learn just sitting in the classroom reading about it. And I'm hoping somewhat you will be able to engage in some aspect of it, right? And the second part I would like to suggest is develop a focus. Right? It's very hard. I mean, I've been them. The more I learn, the more I learn how little I know. Do you see this? So it's very hard for us to know it all. So, but if you think about a focus, as you develop, technology is going to be fundamental, right? Build your domain. I mean, if you're in a marketing, build your marketing. If you're in HR, build your HR. If you're in strategy, so build your what I call the competence domain. Maybe build a geography. You know your hometown very well, and if you like Europe or Africa, pick a geography and read about it and travel and get to know. So if you build a focus, it will help you, because it's very hard to become what I call master of all. So it's build a focus, and that you can do a lot. And the third one, I think you had touched on it earlier. Work with a mentor. Find a mentor who can help you. If you're interested in international, find a mentor. In fact, BU, we have a very strong mentoring program. World Trade Center has a mentoring program. Build a mentor. Mentor can not only advise you, he or she can be an advocate for you. He or she can be a cheerleader for you, because we all go through difficult times and you need somebody to help you through those difficult times. So important to have a mentor as you think about international. And the last one I want to leave you with is start early, start now, right? You don't need to wait for your graduation. You don't need to wait for that expatriate job or an international executive job. Start now. You will find you will gain a lot, right? Start small. You don't need to be the what I call head of international business for Cisco, but start small. Maybe you are in an international business club. Join the event in World Trade Center. In fact, you have done this. Today is your beginning and start now. And that's where I would encourage and leave you with. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. That was a wonderful survey of not only the state of digital technologies, but also how we might all fit into the puzzle ourselves. We have a number of questions that are appearing now, and so I'm going to go directly for the remaining 20 minutes that we have to just some of those questions, and I'm going to combine some of them together when they make sense. So the first one is actually, first two are addressed to One-Air. It seems to me that you often can get into an industry field you are unfamiliar with by bringing together or hiring people with the right expertise. Is that true? Would you ever counsel against getting into a field you're unfamiliar with? And I think that fits nicely with another question that's there. What is your best advice to get into the AI industry? So I'll go first to One-Air, and then Charles, if you have observations, feel free to jump in afterwards as well, and then we'll look at some other questions.
Absolutely. Excellent questions. I am not scared of getting into a new field or industry at all, because I know that my cross-function, cross-time zone project management skills are transferable, and you can definitely find your skills that's transferable also. For example, at my previous role, I've learned how to run digital transformation training programs, and they just happened to my major was in education. So I by the way, I learned it on the job. Now I am taking my skills, doing essentially the same thing, but on a larger scale, as Shiseido, because of the companies is much bigger, which gave me a bigger canvas to do project management across globally, even though it's completely different industry, but the skills are transferable. Tied into the how to get into AI, it is arguably the best time to get into it. I don't know if it's an industry per se, but mainly because the technologies are still so new. There's no degree that you must obtain before you get a job. You can just do researches and learn online and become very knowledgeable on your own. I would be very selective of your sources, though. Although there are solid knowledge here and there on YouTube or on TikTok, but you have much better luck with webinars, white papers, case studies that's published by actual businesses. For example, Salesforce, IBM, Google, or Deloitte. Reason because these companies have hire researchers and analysts to do research. They publish these case studies or white papers for you. So the qualities are much higher than other, say, influencers. And back to the question, how to get into it, there are technical and non-technical approaches. For technical ones, grind the algorithm, learn the data scientist. And for the non-technical ones, you can go in from an administrative roles, project management or business analyst roles. So yeah, hope that helps. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Charles, you want to jump in also?
Yeah, I think, see, what you really come out when you come out of an university, be it undergraduate or graduate, the most you come out of is how to learn. Not so much things that you have learned. You don't come, the field is growing so fast and so vast. It's very hard for you to pin down and say, I've learned it all, right? A lot of what you learned in the last 4 years may be totally outdated by the time you get into the position. So the biggest skill you bring to the table is your capacity to learn. So part of the capacity to learn means you are taking a risk. You're going to stretch yourself. It's going to be a hard one. So as long as you're willing to take the risk and go, you learn. The more you learn, the more you are able to learn even further. Like take a field like AI. It's very hard to find someone who knows it all, right? In fact, I would really recommend a book called Sulaiman's book on the coming wave. It's a beautiful book where he describes some of the challenges of emerging technology, both in the positive and the negative and the concerns and stuff, right? So it's very hard for you to come out as master, but just go in chunks. I mean, the sense like pick one small piece, learn something, and then that will give you a lot more headway, right? The more you learn, the more you are able to learn. So keep that in mind. So pick an area. I mean, that's why my suggestion is pick a domain of your interest and then build your pathway around that. And once you are able to learn, you can always pivot as the market needs are.
Thank you. Here's the question for Charles. What are the most important aspects of AI, blockchain, and other developing technologies that young professionals entering the job market need to get familiar with? And again, Charles can go first, and if Juanair wants to jump in afterwards, feel free to join.
Yeah. See, the one advice what I would say that there's some of the resumes we get, and then I'm working with students who are looking for internships or jobs and stuff. Don't try to pretend what you're not. That's number one. The sense like you can't know everything about AI and everything about blockchain and stuff, and this. So, but then come out with something that you, for example, if blockchain has interested you, make sure that you can talk in a convincing manner and also display some of the competencies that what you are espousing in your resume, right? So the fact that you know about blockchain and that you have done certain actual work with the technology gives me the confidence that I can deploy you anywhere within the spectrum, right? If you are able to learn blockchain and do something, I can deploy you on another area that's a different technology domain, but I know you can learn and move there. So pick one area which is close to your domain of expertise. For example, if you're in the legal domain, right now this whole LLM, the large language models are really ruling the world. Like, so how do we bring that? And then if you're coming from another area, for example, chemistry and stuff, like there's so much going on in selection and the what I call categorizing and predictive and stuff, right? So you have to have some fundamental knowledge of generative AI, some level of predictive AI that will help you to move further. Just pick some baseline and make sure you are good and competent and display some ability, competence, not just the certificate of completion, but competency in that domain. That will give the employer confidence to deploy you anywhere.
Great, thanks, Charles. Juanair, anything to add?
Yeah, and then in addition to that, I would say be curious with different functions within organization, because the reality is when you work for a company, there are some other opportunities. You get exposure to a lot of people from different functions. Just a quick example, it is quite actually recent. Last year, my previous employer really needed someone to do recruiting for a short period of time. It's not my job. It's not part of my job at all. But I was curious. I wanted to know. I wanted to learn. They even hired a coach for me just to ramp me up. And it's such a great experience to get to know the other side of the things. It's an example, but I would say be curious with other functions within your organization as well.
Thanks. I would just add one more thought, and that is that these technologies are becoming increasingly accessible, and there's no reason we can't try them out. Sometimes we can play the role of customer, interacting with some of the digital payment technologies that are now available. ChatGPT is available for free online. If you go for 5 minutes and sign up, you have access to basically a free version, slightly limited, but still plenty to play around with and get a feel for it. And you might try it from a hobby standpoint, but you also might experiment with how it could help your job, whatever you're up to right now. Of course, there's a lot of questions that come out. In the university world, a lot of people are afraid of the cheating that could go along with ChatGPT. Use it in a very transparent way so that faculty and the university see how you're using it. But I think increasingly universities are embracing this as a tool that needs to be learned. And so therefore the experimentation becomes part of the learning process. So play around with these things. They're actually pretty fun. A very trivial example, I made a birthday card for my wife this year with ChatGPT, not masquerading as a card for myself. It was clearly coming from ChatGPT, but many different opportunities just to put these technologies to work in very simple ways that will familiarize ourselves with what they're doing. Next question is for both Juan Air and Charles. What are the biggest risks of getting into a career in a new field like AI? And I'm going to combine that with another question. What would be a good place to start learning about and getting involved with the intersection of AI and international business? And let's go to Juan Air first this time, and then to Charles.
To be honest, as a young professional, if you're in a very early stage of your career, the reward is going to be much bigger, much bigger than risks. Of course, the technologies themselves are, there are ethical risk or other things to be aware of. Getting more knowledge about this topic definitely do not hurt at all. That's all for me.
Okay, good, thanks. And Charles?
Hannah, actually, I would rather phrase it as, what is the risk of not getting into it, right? In the sense, like, in a world like this today, we are seeing this science. It's very clear, like, it's what I call a weak, ambiguous signal, but to some extent, we see the flow. Like, what we don't know is how it is going to emerge. Is it going to be ChatGPT, or is it going to be Bard, or is it going to be something else? That we don't know, right? But you can't afford to just stand on the sidelines. So that would be my number one. And two, start somewhere. Anywhere is better than nowhere, right? So for example, if you're not using ChatGPT or ChatGPT Plus now, you are start it now. The best day was yesterday, but next best day is today. So start now and start using it, and you get an idea of what it is like, right? So you have to ask yourself, do you want to be a developer, or do you want to be a deployer, right? Or a user, right? So which way you want to go? If you want to be in the developer, then you can be what I call the coder or the systems developer, right? In the sense, if you want to be a coder, then you want to go towards the coding and accessing stuff. And now if you want to be a system developer, you need to more understand the broader systems and help, and then work with the coders and stuff. And if you're a deployer or a user, then you have to really get it. It's almost like what I call a product engineer job, right? Product manager stuff. So you have to have an understanding of how customers' needs are, and then building it. It's a sort of a marketing plus the operations part of it. So pick your domain where you want to start, because right now there is quite a few starting points available, and ChatGPT is one of them.
Great, thanks to you both. I'd like to ask Charles a question. You talked about sort of the concept of creator and consumer of information in different ways, and you had some fantastic examples of how these technologies are actually reaching even to the poorest, economically poorest areas of the world. I'm wondering if there are any good examples of how local people, the so-called unbanked, have participated in writing their own future, as opposed to simply receive these technologies that were created by large companies, perhaps elsewhere in the world or locally.
Yeah, Doug, this is an important one. I want our audience to recognize there's something called what we call digital public good, right? Now imagine today you and I are able to enjoy internet because somebody developed the internet. It was originally military purpose and stuff, but then it was put as a public good, because of which all these developments were possible, right? Now you think about, as the future develops, if a lot of these are becoming proprietary infrastructure, it will not help a lot of people, right? So the more and more we have to see digital public goods emerge, which will allow for greater deployment, number one. And number two, what Doug, you are really alluding to is engaging the consumer into the creation, right? And that's, we have not seen that much in Poland. And this is why we need more of young people who can get into some of the social stuff. For example, there is so much going on in the financial inclusion arena. Now, we do it from what I call the ivory tower feel. Like a lot of the projects are not able to conceive of how does the person at the end take and use it. For example, I'll give you one project which was a phenomenal project. Godrej, a company, a large multinational company in India. A number of us can recognize the name Clayton Christensen, who came up with disruptive innovation. So Godrej came up with an idea of providing a cooling system for our poor neighborhoods. They came up with a product which was roughly about 1/10 of the price a refrigerator was selling. Unfortunately, by the time they came up with the product, they realized the product could not be used because most of the poor people problem was not storing food, but getting food, right? I mean, they were worried about the food getting waste if it is stored on the normal stuff. But the poor man's problem was not that. His problem was getting the food for the daily day, right? So to some extent, we have not seen that happening. So for what you propose, Doug, we need a new way of engaging the consumers. And as we think about this AI and technology and digital, is there a way in which for us to co-opt them into the process, right? One good example I leave with when computer was developed in Mumbai, there's a slum meaning it's all a mass number of poor people, like it's like huge in thousands families were dwelling in Mumbai. They basically created what they called as a computer in a hole in a wall type of a thing. Basically, they left a computer and with some very simple user interfaces, and then saw what people were using it. And that was a huge experiment. This was done in the late 80s and then carried on. And that gave a lot of information about how do we apply some of the information technology for the poor people. Something like that, we can able to think about digital for the common person. That would be a phenomenal accomplishment.
Great, thanks, Charles. Juaner, any perspective from your side? No? Okay. Next question, and by the way, we're down to our final 5 minutes, so anybody that has a question, please submit quickly, and we're almost out of time, but we have time for 2 or 3 more questions probably. I'm wondering, Juaner, with your really fantastic cross-national perspective, having worked in China, Japan, and the United States, and consulted with companies in other parts of the world, what are some of the differences culturally in the approach to these technologies that you observe, particularly perhaps your experience in the United States versus Japan versus China?
Yeah, I often say China and the US surprisingly have a lot of similarities than differences than you think, especially when it comes to adopting new technologies. Both China and the US would jump right on. We're not scared of testing out new technologies. We're trying out new things right away, whereas Japan's far more risk adverse. Japan's very careful, more conservative when it comes to newest technologies. And as far as business cultures, I mostly work for global companies, and we really focus on the similarities, common grounds, and business goals rather than differences. And that's often more efficient.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you. Charles, any thoughts?
No, it's I mean, for me, the closing parting thought would be to build an interest. Once you have built an interest, find a mentor who can help you. And I think I see Karen Kayla are actively building the mentoring program, and it's a phenomenal one. And I think more of, in fact, I realized like we did something. In fact, Doug has been the lead instructor for a course that DU developed on AI and the future of work. And I never understood it, and when I first joined DU, but the more we got into it, we realized like it can't be an elective; it has to be a core. So I think Doug, it's a core now, right?
It is. Just
So
this year.
so yeah. So and I think I'm hoping that there will be more conversations. Like we have a number of students here. Think about creating conversation groups on AI. Like how do we think about it? How do we understand it? Because it's a new technology. It's still a lot of things that we don't know. But unless we engage, unless we step into it, it's very hard for moving into it now. So that could be something that you can think about it, and having groups that can travel to different companies to understand how they are deploying AI, and even understanding different countries. Like you have to recognize that like different countries have different strategies towards AI. Like what US does and what Canada does, in spite of the fact we are neighbors, it's very different. And what Latin America will do will be very different. So national context also creates a very unique opportunity. So I'm sort of seeing this phenomenon. I see one question from Nicholas on English as a language. See, the language issue is going to become less and less critical right now with the whole AI development. In fact, I mean, now you can travel with your French-speaking Babel on your phone. So as long as you are open-minded and willing to experiment and learn, the world is opening for you. A new big world is opening for you.
Thanks. Some good wise advice to close with, and I just want to check in with One Air. Any last comments before we bring the session to a close?
None for me. Thank you.
No. Okay. Well, thanks to you both. You can see from the chat that there's a lot of appreciation over in the chat for both of your comments and perspectives, and there was a nice blending that came together between the perspective that Charles offered, kind of the big picture use of these technologies, and then some career advice coming from One Air in terms of kind of tips in terms of how you maintain a certain outlook that can give you the ability to find those opportunities along the way, along with advice from Charles of finding a mentor early on, which is also a very critical part of this process, particularly as we're navigating kind of new territory. When we say unknown territory, it's unknown to everybody. And so we're figuring it out together. Unfortunately, we're out of time, and apologies to anyone whose question was not answered. I think we got to pretty much all of the different questions, but I'd like to again thank Charles and One Air for their great perspective. And I also hope that everyone who's interested has had a chance to register for the free training course offered by the World Trade Center. Our next session will begin at 10:45, and we'll explore global supply chain risk, vulnerability, and resilience. We look forward to seeing you all back in just a few minutes at 10:45. Thanks again to our panelists for a fantastic first session.
Thank you all. Thanks for having me.